The camera opens on a silent, mist-covered forest. The only sound is the soft rustling of leaves and the distant call of birds. At first, the view seems serene, almost peaceful, as the morning sun filters through the trees, casting warm rays on the forest floor. But as the camera zooms in, the serenity is shattered. There, in the midst of this natural paradise, is a scene of unimaginable cruelty. A pregnant bear is chained to a tree, her once majestic form now reduced to a trembling shadow of its former self. The chains are thick, the metal rusty and unforgiving. They bite into her skin, digging deep, cutting through the layers of fur. Her eyes, wide with fear and desperation, dart from side to side. She's pacing, nervously, agitated, seemingly trapped in an endless cycle of pain and confusion. A low, guttural cry escapes her lips, a sound that echoes through the forest but is met only by the empty silence. The bear's body shudders, her muscles stiff from exhaustion, her breathing shallow and rapid. The camera lingers on her face, capturing every detail. The fear in her eyes, the trembling of her limbs, the exhaustion that weighs her down. There's a stark contrast between her natural environment and the unnatural prison she's been forced into. The trees tower above her, casting long shadows, but none of them can offer her any protection. The forest, which should be her sanctuary, has become a trap, a place where she cannot escape no matter how hard she struggles. The bear's cries grow louder, more desperate. She pulls against the chains, her claws scraping at the ground as if trying to dig her way out, but the chains hold fast, keeping her in place. The camera moves closer, focusing on the thick, rusty links of the chain, the way they dig into the tree, and the blood that stains the earth beneath her feet. Every movement she makes is a battle, against the chains, against the pain, against the hopelessness that is beginning to settle in her heart. The camera then pans to her swollen belly, a stark reminder of the life she is carrying. The bear, despite the odds stacked against her, is still pregnant, still holding on to a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, she will be able to give birth to her cubs in peace. But with each passing moment, that hope is slipping further away. As the camera pulls back, revealing the vast emptiness of the forest around her, a sense of isolation settles in. The bear is alone. There's no one to help her, no one to save her from the pain, no one to free her from the chains. The silence is deafening, broken only by the occasional cry of the bear, a heartbreaking plea for someone, anyone, to hear her suffering. A quick flashback shows the bear's capture, chaotic, painful, and full of violence. She's been trapped in a net, struggling, snarling, but ultimately defeated. The poachers are ruthless, indifferent to her suffering, dragging her through the dirt and into the cage that will become her prison. Her cries are muffled as the cage door slams shut. They cart her off to the remote area, where no one will hear her cries. She's confined to the tree with the chains, her freedom stripped away by the very people who claim dominion over her life. The quick flashback is a stark contrast to the peaceful forest scenes, emphasizing the brutality she's endured. Tension builds. Will she survive? The camera cuts back to the present moment. The bear continues to pace, her movements becoming more erratic, more desperate. Her breath comes in short, painful gasps as she pulls against the chains once more, trying in vain to free herself. But it's no use. The chains hold fast. Her body is exhausted, but her spirit is not yet broken. Tension hangs thick in the air. The camera focuses on her eyes, wide, full of fear and pain, but there's something more there. A spark, a flicker of defiance. Despite everything, she is not giving up. Will she survive this nightmare? The question lingers, unanswered, as the camera pulls back once again, showing the full scope of her captivity. The forest, once her home, is now a cage, a vast, uncaring prison. The bear lets out another anguished cry, and the camera cuts to black. End of scene. The audience is left in stunned silence, the weight of the bear's suffering heavy in the air. There's no clear answer to the question of her survival. The stakes have been set. Her life, The lives of her unborn cubs hang in the balance. But the struggle is only beginning. Will anyone come to her aid in time? Or is this bear destined to endure the most heart-wrenching fate imaginable? The answer is unclear, but one thing is certain. The journey ahead will be one filled with peril, hope, and heartbreak. And for the bear, survival will require more than just strength. It will require the strength of a will that refuses to break, no matter the odds. The scene shifts, cutting to a flashback. The colors grow darker, the footage grainy, as the camera zooms in on a smaller version of the bear, her eyes wide with fear. We see her out in the open, roaming freely, unaware of the impending danger. A group of poachers, their faces concealed, move swiftly through the underbrush. They corner her, and the camera captures the blur of struggle, her frantic efforts to escape the net that suddenly cast over her. She fights, but it's too late. The poachers overpower her, binding her limbs, dragging her through the forest. Her cries are muffled, her body limp with exhaustion and fear. As the flashback ends, the screen briefly fades to black. Back in the present, the unbearable weight of her situation becomes clear. The camera returns to the present, showing the bear again. Bigger now, pregnant, and more vulnerable than ever. The chains around her legs are not just physical restraints, but psychological ones, each link symbolizing the years of torment and abuse she's endured. Her eyes, once filled with the bright spark of life, are now clouded with fear and hopelessness. She shifts her weight, but the chains scrape against the tree, the noise a constant reminder of her captivity. As the bear tugs at the chain again, her breathing quickens. Her chest heaves more urgently, and she looks around once more, seemingly expecting someone to come, to free her. The emptiness of the wilderness only grows more oppressive. A gust of wind blows through the trees, but it doesn't reach her. Her confined space remains still, stagnant, unchanging. A sudden shift in her behavior. Her belly swells with the movement of her unborn cubs, kicking from within her. It's a strange, cruel juxtaposition. Life blossoming inside her, but she remains trapped, unable to protect or care for them as nature intended. She grunts, her body stiffens for a moment, and then she resumes her pacing. Her cries grow weaker now, more resigned. But something changes. The camera cuts to a figure in the distance, a silhouette moving through the trees. The bear freezes. Her eyes narrow, her whole body goes still. The figure gets closer, and the camera shifts between the bear and the approaching stranger. Her ears twitch. She's uncertain whether to trust the presence. The figure is a rescuer. The tension in the air thickens, and the audience is left wondering. Will the bear finally get the help she so desperately needs? Or will she remain chained in her torment, helpless to the cruel fate that awaits her? The audience is left hanging on the edge as the figure approaches, the promise of salvation, or perhaps something worse, looming large.